all of you to the 9th edition of Friday at 5. It's always a great time to be back among principals, teachers from across India and as well as from Middle East. I think Friday at 5 is quickly becoming a ritual for a lot of teachers to make sure that they end their wonderful week uh, while they talk about education. We have a great show today, a very happy Gandhi Jayanti to all of you. We are also celebrating the birthday of one of the most simple prime ministers of India, Mr. Lal Bahadur Shastri. And I think it's a very befitting tribute to both these gentlemen that we are going to be taking up topics um, that were very close to their hearts, topics of equity and inclusivity in school education. We have two really wonderful ladies who have spent their entire life dedicated to the cause of inclusivity. We have with us uh, Mrs. Usha Ram. She's a very well-known face in school education. She has served Lakshman Public School as the former principal, and she's also chairman of a foundation that works closely with children and benefiting them, special needs children. Uh, and she was also, I think, the founder principal of Sadhu Vaswani School, if I'm not wrong. Um, Welcome, ma'am. Thank you for being with us. We also have Kanwal Singh with us. She's been a special education teacher for a very long time. She has headed special education initiative schools, and she has even authored a book. I'm just looking forward to interacting with both Mrs. Usha Ram and Kanwal. And just incidentally, I'll tell you that Kanwal is my batchmate from DPS Mathura Road. So we actually did our schooling together. And I'm so very happy that Kanwal, you could join us today
Thank
on
you.
this show. Just to set the ball rolling, I think the way we'll proceed with these is we will, talk to both the experts. I'm a mathematician. I do not know much about special education. I must admit that. The only thing I know is the 5 papers that I've read in the policy. So I am looking forward to learning from both the experts, and we'll begin with a dialogue with the experts on the various issues which are importantly mentioned in the policy. And then around 5:30, as is our tradition, we will open the floor for your questions. So make sure that you put your questions right in the chat box, or you could raise your hand, and I'll try to take as many questions as possible. My only request would be, please be very crisp on your questions, because no matter what, we will have to leave this program at 6 p.m. Sharp, and we need to respect that punctuality for everybody. So keep your questions very crisp. And also, I would request the speakers to keep their answers very crisp, because sometimes, some answers can take forever. So without wasting much time, let me just go ahead and start looking at the policy. And one of the main reasons why the government is trying to focus uh, on inclusivity and on equity is because of the dropout rates that they experience in secondary school as well as in higher education. So what is happening is there are certain socially, economically disadvantaged groups, and it's not just about learning disabilities. There are other groups also. There could be gender disparities also. There could be economic disparities also. So it's very rare, when you look at a newspaper and suddenly you see a photograph that the child of an auto rickshaw driver has been able to get into IIT. Now, why should in India that be a news? Why should it be a news? should not every child who's born to a auto rickshaw or a rickshawala have equal access to education? And should it not be considered as part of life that this child has gotten into IIT? And why is it something that we celebrate over the news? And I'm very sure you would have experienced the same thing. So my first question that pops up in my head, and that's for Mrs. Usha Ram, is that do private schools across the country also face this problem that students who are from socially, economically disadvantaged groups, they drop out in grades 9, 10, 11, 12, and they don't pursue their higher education? Do we see that trend among private schools also? Ma'am, over to you.
Yeah, to some extent, yes, not completely. But then I would like to say that there are 3 points to it. It is emotional, social, and economic. All the 3 areas, if we look at it, it's not because of academically not very well or anything. It's not because of that. It's because of other reasons also which are there. For that reason, probably they are not able to go for higher education, and they drop out in between. And sometimes they even take a skill-based programs. Very good. I have seen children after 8th or 9th, those who are doing very well from EWS, they joined the skill-based, diploma courses, and they're doing very well. I've got so many examples, those who are there with me in the school, they're doing very well. So yes, to some extent, but then some of them go for higher education, some of them go for skill-based programs. Not that they completely drop out and they don't do anything. That's not there. That's not there.
Okay, so my nephew also was ADHD, and he was, diagnosed with that. So instead of doing regular CBSE courses, he went into cooking, and he was very interested in cooking, and he wants to be a chef now. Now, Kanwal, what could be some of the reasons that that schools would face this problem over a period of time? I mean, why? Yes, I mean, there is economic reason, there is also emotional reason, academic reason. But in your experience, the kids who have dropped out, why would they drop out of school?
So I think some of the points Usha ji has already shared, but one of the reasons which is not often talked about is the silent exclusion that happens in school, right? So it's like you're being invited to a party, but you're not allowed to mingle, you're not allowed to participate, right? So that silent exclusion, that how do you say, that bullying, that segregation, these are the things that also impact a child. And then you say enough is enough, I'm going to drop out. So the child, in some cases it's yes, economic reasons or vocational courses like Usha ji said, but in some cases it's because the child is struggling so much that dropping out is the only option left for the child.
I think that's the reason why the policy also talks about that all these things, initiatives will work only if the school has the right culture. Yes. I think that's, one of the things. And I know, Usha ma'am, that you have created that culture in your school, right? So how would, if a private school, right? I mean, most of the people that we have today on the webinar are either principals or teachers. Now, how can principals create that culture of inclusivity in the school? I mean, if you could just elaborate.
See, first of all, where there is a will, there is a, if there is a will, there is a way always. Now, what we used to do, what I was doing, we had to create that culture, but from A to Z. The person who is bringing the child in, the driver, the conductor, the ayahs, the people in the office or the peer, the children who are there in the class, the teachers. So we used to sensitize them beforehand. See, all these programs started later on that you have to take 3 children, compulsorily now. Now the government says that you have to take 3 children out of EWS or even otherwise. I was having more than 100 children, and they were from different disability groups. And I had nearly 12 special educators also. But what we had done was we created an atmosphere that we are all equal. And what used to happen that especially for social programs, for any other program, we were all together. Academically, probably sometimes they would go for another class and they would not go for one class because sometimes they could not really cope with that. But then to sensitize everybody was very important. I have one example, if you agree, I can tell you that.
Absolutely.
In case of one child, autistic child, till 8th standard, I had no problem. And the child, because it was a high IQ child and doing very well and no problem helping everybody. Suddenly, I started getting complaints that even the parents started complaining, the children started saying, we don't want him in the class and all. I was wondering suddenly what has happened? This child has been me for the last 5 years. And then what happened? I inquired and when I just looked into, the teacher was new, the section was divided, the whole, you divide the class A, B, C, D again, the whole lot again. And another point was that these children and the teacher was not knowing anything about the autism. I did nothing. I just told them, children, just go to the library. What they used to do, they would really irritate him or take away his copy because he was very intelligent, or take away his pencil. They used to get irritated. So I said, all right, go to the library, just see what is autism. And I requested the teacher also. I said, I'm sorry, I should have really prepared, because she was a new teacher. And then when they went through that, they realized that they were doing all that what the child doesn't want. And then gradually they all accepted and they all became good friends. And the child cleared 12th standard. Now he's done his engineering, because he was an autistic child, but doesn't matter. But he is doing very well in life and well adjusted in life. So it's very important that we can, create a conducive environment. Even the parents have to be really given some kind of counseling. Not only the parents of the children whose children are special children or, differently abled. It's a regular, we used to have in the PTMs, we used to discuss about it, that, we are all one, and they all accepted. So we had a very wonderful culture, but we had to create it. As I said, we gradually created that, and the children were doing very well. Nobody felt anything. And these children, especially my children who were differently abled and who had the physical problem, they never wanted any assistance. They said, we want only love. They never wanted any holding hand and all. They never liked it. I had a child who was, this cerebral palsy. He says, please don't hold me. I know how to go. I will go myself. And he cleared his 12th. Right now, he's got a 95%, in one of the subjects, and he's got 80s. So it's only you have to accept them. And my request to everybody, all the teachers and the parents, that we should accept ourselves as equal. We are all actually disabled, if you ask me. We all have some disability or the other. So we have to accept that what we are, we should be given enough space to grow naturally.
Thank you very much. I think you made a very, very good point that it's possibly, the peer support that comes, the students need to be, they are the biggest support sometimes for these. And I think what happens is sometimes that our social stigmas attached to some of the things. For example, as a society, we don't treat transgenders as equal, just as an example. So when we know that we have a transgender student in our class, it becomes, because it comes back from the family and the environment and the society that we live in. Have you, Kanwal, what would you use as a strategy that if there was a transgender in my class, how would I make other students sensitive to the needs of these transgender students?
So it's again, the focus is not one child who is transgender or one child who has cerebral palsy or autism. The way we have to address it is in a broader term, like mentioned before. It's all about diversity, right? So instead of, sensitization is crucial, but how you do the sensitization program is also very important. One thing is that you do a topic today, that today we're going to talk about disability, or today we're going to talk about transgender. So instead of singling out, talk about diversity. So all of us are different. We have our strengths and differences. We have our different ways of talking or walking or behaving. So, and then you bring in all the aspects, and transgender is just one of those aspects. So, we're obviously right now we're not very open to, in schools we don't see many transgender students who have not really dropped out, because it's very difficult. It's the school culture which is not accepting as yet. It's not the school's fault also, because it's something new for them also, right? So we've also been brought up in a way, we've been conditioned to kind of, what do you say, that anything who is different, anything that looks different does not belong. You remember the preschool worksheets that we had in nursery and prep? You'll be shown 2 squares and a circle, and the vocabulary that is used is which one is different, which is the odd one out, which doesn't belong. So right from the beginning, anything different does not belong. So we have to change our mindset. We have to, so it's like Gandhiji's birthday today, it's Gandhi Jayanti, and his favorite, one of his famous quotes is that your beliefs become your thoughts, and your thoughts become your words, and your words become your actions. So it has to start from your beliefs, right? And then you go on to, so your beliefs will become your thoughts. And so you have to think in terms of diversity, you have to think, and you have to talk, and you have to live, and you have to breathe inclusion. And that's how we can include everybody.
So if I look at it from a, as the perspective of a principal, it seems, what you're saying is a huge challenge. I mean, it's, it doesn't seem like something that I as a principal would want to welcome on my table on Monday morning, because it seems like ye to bahut, the Hindi word for that is pasudi. This is a big problem. This is a big challenge. I might as well avoid it. If a school, ma'am, wanted to create a stepwise plan to transition itself from the current situation, what, ma'am, would you say is like the first step that a principal needs to do tomorrow morning? I mean, so suppose we inspire one of these principals and say, look, I'm going to build a culture of inclusivity. So on Monday morning, what would you want her to do in her office? Usha ma'am, why don't you take this up? Yeah.
Yeah. See, first of all, if I have to start, this thing all over again, which for me it's after 30 years, but anyway, I'll go back to my memory lane and come back. And I'm very happy what Mrs. Singh has said. I should appreciate, because she talked about the mindset, and she talked about about the children going out for the parties. I fully agree with her. We don't have much time to discuss on that. Anyway, Dr. Nishchal, what is very important that we cannot straight away, I can tell them, I'm going to do something different. No, I'm sorry. What I have to do is I have to do some kind of presentations, probably in my PTMs, with my main thing is with my staff, with my helpers, the people who help us, because they are very important, because they are the ones who take the children, bring them from the bus, take them out. And then, so I have to really create that culture, in the sense that I have to prepare some kind of visuals or something, that we're all one, we're all same. And then gradually I change my infrastructure, have a ramp, the toilets are changed. I have some special educators who will really talk to teachers, because they have a special knack of talking. So they will talk to the teachers. So initially, before I bring the children in, I had to prepare my school for that. I have to prepare my teachers for that. I have to talk in my parent-teacher associate, the meeting also, and now I'm so happy that at least at time when we started, nobody knew anything about it. But after, so many movies, this, that, people are aware. And I must tell you, Dr. Nishchal, I feel very grateful to all the parents, the parents whose children are, not differently able. They accept. The only thing is that you have to motivate them. You have to make them accept. And I honestly tell you that we never have any problems in that. So we have to see that we cannot just walk in and say, see, I'm going to start them. Wo nahi hone wala. You have to really prepare yourself, prepare your school, prepare your environment, prepare everybody for it before you bring even 1 or 2 children. Now because the children are coming, so now situation is very different. The children are just walking into, but there's one very good thing I must share with you. Delhi government had sent a circular to us that the schools, these are the disabilities. In which area would you like to help. So I had mentioned that I don't have any braille, I don't have anything for the blind, but I said for differently abled, I have for, learning disability is my major issue, but then children who have the other disabilities also, everything. So it was a very good program that they had made, but I don't know how it is going on now. But I remember I was getting children only of that level because I told them that I have the facility only for this, this, this. So I was getting children for that. And that is also one thing which I felt very good when I got a circular from the government, from the Delhi government, saying that which area would you like to help the children? I said, these are the areas that I'm already doing it. Please, you can give me children in that area. So we all have to understand, you all have to really feel from within that we are all one. What just Mrs. Singh said, we don't have to proclaim or anything. We're all one. How does it matter? I walk differently, you walk differently, I speak differently. It doesn't make any difference. Only if we really make it very, very obvious, we really make it very, very prominent. Are, dekho wo kaise kar rahe. Then naturally the child also feels and everybody starts feeling. So it is the culture that we have to create. I cannot do it suddenly in the morning and I say I'm going to start. I have to create that ambience, that culture in my school when I start off.
That's, I think, a very, very good, important point that you made. Incidentally, I do want to share here that yesterday we were having one of the programs with ICSL, and Professor Ed Harris from the University of Oklahoma was with us, and he's an expert on creating school cultures. And he was mentioning the importance of creating symbols to glorify the kind of culture that we want. So, and one of the things is that if we start appreciating and acknowledging the progress made by differently abled students or disadvantaged students, I think we glorify them as models and heroes, and that also creates a big difference in setting up a culture. But one of the things that I have a question on is that sometimes teachers are also very confused. I mean, there is, I am a math teacher, right? So I feel that my job is to teach mathematics, okay? So I don't need to learn about how to deal with special education, special children with special need. And even special educators in themselves are sometimes very confused as to what is the right strategy to deal with them. And I know, Kanwal, you had, I think that's the purpose you wrote that book, Hanging On. So could you elaborate slightly on what kind of confusions exist in the mind of teachers, while they deal with these kind of students?
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say is that special educators are considered, like you also shared, that we are experts in this field, but actually we might be experts in special education, but we're not experts in the field of inclusive education. It's equally challenging for us because we've been trained on about certain disabilities and certain techniques, and we have absolutely no idea of what happens in a regular school. What does it mean to have examinations? What does it mean to have 40 children or 50 children in class? Similarly, teachers, the mainstream teachers have their strengths. They know how to manage a class of 40 children. They know their subject content. So they are also confused and we are also confused. So it's together that we have to find a way out. We have to work together. We have to collaborate. We have to plan together. And that is how we can move forward. Because right now, like you said, there is utter confusion. What do we want? Do we want the child with disabilities or to be called special? But we want inclusion. But inclusion means everybody is special, right? So there is a lot of confusion, and the understanding of what is inclusion, what is integration, what is special, it's all very fuzzy. So there is a lot of confusion, but if we start working together, it's again the mindset. If we decide that we have to do it, if we decide that this whole class is our children, it's not that these are the the special socioeconomic disadvantaged children, because I've heard this in schools. the SED children or the EWS children, which means straight away that they are, you don't think that they belong to you. It's like us and them, we and they. So it has to become our children. And once you take in all the children, you accept them, things happen automatically. Actually, it's magic. I mean, if you see true inclusion happening, it really makes your heart sing. So people find ways. And in fact, teachers who don't have special education backgrounds think much more creatively, actually, because they are not limited. They are not wearing their disability lens and looking at the child in a narrow way, right? So their thinking is different. So actually, it works wonders once you accept the child.
I know, Usha ma'am, you want to add something to it, right? So you had,
we have the counselors also. So there is a, special educators, counselors, and the regular teachers who are teaching in the class. So sometimes, because as Mrs. Singh just said, that, sometimes there's confusion. And the regular teachers do not sometimes have that much of time, and the special educators are specialized in their area. So the counselors also play a very important role, that in case, they can have their sessions little later, probably not in the morning, little later, and they discuss about what can be done. This is the problem right now that I face, but how to solve it. There's another very important area that I want to tell, that is, see, when we are straight away putting the children, I'm just talking about the children who have multiple disabilities. I'm not talking about learning disability. Learning disability is fine, you have that and you can cover it up, and you don't take one subject, you take another subject, you leave this and you leave that. The CBSE also has given a lot of benefits. NIOS says you can clear one subject. But there are children who have multiple disabilities. With them, how to deal with those children, I personally feel, and this is what I've been trying, whether people like it or not, I used to keep them with the special educators for some time. They would socialize, they would do everything. But when it came to be in the class, they were sensitized, they were prepared for it. You don't prepare the child, straight away throw the child into that, with all the 40 children. Poor thing, the child doesn't know, because he's little different, she's little different. Or the special educator has to go and sit with them. So every school doesn't have those many special educators that they can go and sit with them. So I tried that. I tried to sensitize the children, tried to prepare them. And once they were ready, they were put into the class. See, this is how we behave. Because parents sometimes cannot teach, how to behave, how to eat. When you have to go to the toilet, you can request, you can ask for it, and have an ayah in the class, see that somebody. So all these preparations we have to do for children when we have, multiple disabilities. But when it comes to economically weaker, it doesn't matter at all. How does it matter? They're wearing the same uniform. We never even would talk about it. I still remember one case in which one television group, they came, they said, "Hum na aapke EWS ke bachchon se baat karna, we want to talk to them." I said, "Go and search them." I said, "If you can find them," I said, "I've got more than 500 in the school, go and look for them." And actually they went. I said, "See, this is class 5, these children are there." And they said, I knew that there were 2 children. I said, "Ye hai, but now you talk to them." They said, "Bachche, hum aapse baat." He said, "Talk to me in English." First thing the child said, "Talk to me in English." He said, "All right." Then they said, "Hamara Hindi ka channel hai." I said, "No, talk to him." And then he said, "Acha, what does your father do?" "My father is a doctor." And another, that girl, "What does your mother?" "My mother is a teacher." And when they came, I said, "Ab kar lo, kya karte ho?" The child doesn't want to accept my father is a barber. The child is, because we have not accepted barbership in there's nothing wrong. Barber का होने का क्या फर्क पड़ता है? लेकिन बच्चे के दिमाग में ये बात पड़ी थी कि मुझे अपना यही कहना है कि मेरे फादर डॉक्टर हैं, मेरी मम्मी टीचर हैं, अब कर लो क्या करते हो? I said, you can't ask them. They will not even tell you, and why should they tell you also? उनकी background आपको जान के क्या करना? Because they were wanting to highlight and say EWS children are doing very well. I've got examples that have done so well in life. And ये बात ठीक है, what Mrs. Singh said, that for socializing and all, जब वो शाम के वक्त parties वगैरह में, पर हमारे बच्चे ऐसे ज़्यादा, in my school, we did not have that kind of culture where they go to parties and all that. तो इसलिए मुझे problems नहीं आई है, but some of the schools I'm hearing, they have this kind of problem. लेकिन ये बच्चे बहुत अच्छा करते हैं. See, when I one point when you said कि ये IIT और उसके लिए highlight क्यों करते हैं, हाईलाइट इसलिए करते हैं कि इतनी एडवर्स सिचुएशंस के साथ, नॉट बिकॉज ऑफ दैट कि बच्चा स्पेशल है, इसलिए कि इतनी एडवर्सरीज थी, इतनी डिफिकल्टीज थी, तब भी इस बच्चे ने क्लियर कर लिया। और दूसरे बच्चे हैं उनको इतना करवाओ तब भी वो नहीं कर पाते। फ्रॉम दैट एंगल, see, I'm looking at it from a very different angle, Atul ji. You
Yes,
understand?
yes.
Not from a point, oh अच्छा जी इसको बड़ा, वो नहीं, देखो मेरे पास कुछ नहीं था, मैंने सड़क पे बैठ के पढ़ लिखा, मैंने कर लिया।
Right. No, I agree with you. I agree with you. It's important to bring out that aspect also.
Yeah.
That look, without having all the wonderful privileges of life, we have still
Yeah.
managed to be somewhere, and I
Yes.
agree with that. That's the other perspective. But since
I
you
looked at it from that angle.
Madam, since you have brought out parents, I have this one concern as to how do parents of, because that's also a very big stakeholder and very important stakeholder in making sure that they get the right balanced education. What kind of challenges would teachers or schools face with or what kind of mentoring do we need to do with for the parents to make sure that they start treating their children as normal people at home? Because maybe that problem begins from the home when the parent keeps saying you're not like your siblings, and it, that could be a problem also. So Kanwal, I mean, could you just share your thoughts on what is it that the parents are not doing right, and what is it that they might be hurting their children with?
So are you referring to a specific group, or are you talking in general?
No, I think it's general, because see, even for a poor kid, right? Sometimes the parent would say, look, we are not like them. You can't go to this, you can't do this because we are poor. Similarly, a tribal guy would be saying that. Similarly, for example, ma'am brought out a very good point that I'm a barber. I really cannot give you the normal life, normal education of the people. So I think parents, apart from learning disability, I understand dyslexia hoga, ADHD hoga, parents would feel suffocated. I understand that. But there are other ways also that parents create the bias in the mind of their own children, right? In certain situations.
Yeah, but that would be true for, I think, any parent, any family. So just belonging to a socioeconomic disadvantaged group would, I mean, you have parents who are rich, who have all the resources, but still they would have issues. I mean, they would not be managing certain issues, certain parenting things which are not appropriate. So it's not necessary that just because a child is from a poor background, the parents would not be, kind of, they would be discouraging, or there would be comparisons or something. So I don't think that would really be relevant here in my understanding. In fact, I find that a lot of parents are very serious about how the child does in school. Their sense of community is very strong. So a lot of students, the parents are daily wage earners. So if you have a report card day, some parents cannot take leave, because that means the wage for the entire day goes. So they send other parents. One parent goes to 10 classes and collects the report cards, meets teachers, and gives all the information to each parent, which is very interesting. So this shows that they have that commitment and they want their child to kind of do well. And a lot of them also take pride in being a barber or being a mali or being a driver. So it varies from parent to parent and family to family. So I don't think I can generalize.
Let me take up some more questions that have come, some really good questions. So I have Girish, our RB. Girish, are you there with us?
Can I join in this? I would like to add up something to
this.
this.
Go ahead, please, absolutely.
See, when it comes to children with special needs, or it comes to regular, those who are good parents, they will do everything. Yes. I remember a case, parents so well off, and the child had disabilities, and the child was coming in the special. You won't believe the child's bag had 5 tiffin carriers. Roz ka roz ek usme, servant was only putting 1. That's all. And then when the teacher came to me and we called the parent, I said, your job is only this? Why don't you even check your bag, bag of your child? And oh, मैंने उसका देखा था, इसका नहीं देखा. I said, you can't do that. You have to check bags of both the children. There are 5 different carriers in that, and the child has not eaten, and it's smelling. You're not even bothered. So there are variety of parents. The parents who are very concerned. There are parents who don't bother. They want to get rid of the children. छुट्टी, अच्छा आज भी छुट्टी है. मतलब they want to have their good time, and they want the children to go to school. ये special बच्चे हैं, चलो वहाँ जाके जो भी करें. But then, so there's a, as she said, we cannot even say that this is right, this is wrong. There are variety of people, and they know how to handle the children.
Well, that's so nice. I mean, that's that answers the question that parents are parents, right?
Yes.
So it doesn't matter कि वो किसके parents हैं. So let me, Girish, are you there with us?
Yes, sir, very much.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and put your question?
Yes, sir. My question to the experts. Good evening, madams and sir. I implemented ability grouping based on the academic performance of the students in the previous academic year assessments. And when we get new admissions where the children don't score the cutoff marks to seek admission, and when they perform very poor in the admission entrance, so we group these children. This is what I did last academic year, and we named it as A section. And I even told the parents that the first 3 months we will not be teaching them the actual curriculum. Instead, we will drill their basics, since those students were found to be poor in foundations and basics of that particular subject. We named it as BEP, Basic Enrichment Program. With lots of reluctancy from the parents, we somehow managed to complete the first 3 months course for these students. And later there was some visible improvement found in these children. Now my question to the experts is, as the principal, having to face the opposition from the parents and some sort from the management also, should I continue ability grouping or not? Whether should I mix them all together and proceed with the actual curriculum?
Okay, Ushaji, I think you should take this up.
Yeah. I don't agree to this ability group at all, whether ability group or the remediation group. You know, you have to take them together. If they are little weak in one subject, we can give them some kind of remediation after the school hours or during the recess time or some other time that is available. But never ever divide them and say, oh, this is the ability group. You know, there are schools I would not like to mention. Those ability group children, what have they done? Has anybody checked out of that ability group? Only 4 go to IIT or this. The rest of them, what do? They become snooties. So you should never have. You should put them all together. I had a system where we had say 20 A1s. So all the 20 A1s were divided into 4 sections. Then all Bs were divided. All Cs were divided. All Ds and everybody. So they're all, and then wherever the child needed any help, we had that peer learning. We had that, you know, help each other, sit with that person, guide that person. You know, that is why we say that collaborative learning, experiential learning, inquiry based learning, उसी से तो ये मतलब है. That is what we have within the school system. We should do it, but never ever segregate them and say, this is the ability group. कोई ऐसा नहीं है बच्चा, no ability group. If you have to do it, you have a separate, you know, in the classroom itself. I seen in one of the schools, बड़ा सुंदर system था. They had a small library in the class itself. If you have finished the work, sit there and read something, and then come back. So why should you take them out? Why should you say this is the ability group? I don't agree. As a principal, as a management person, I don't agree.
Thank you, ma'am. I think that answers the question. We have Prashant Mule. Prashant ji, can you ask your question?
Yeah. Good evening, all of you. My question relates to both the experts because they have been dealing with the special education for a long period of time. Now, the problem is sometimes the parents don't agree or don't want to accept that the child is a special child and needs to be dealt with differently. And another problem is that they also have a thought in the mind that if my child is a special child and you want to deal with the child differently, why should I put the child in this school where the fees is so and so? I have to pay the equal fees as the others are paying. And whereas you will say that we'll have to lower the syllabus in case a child needs to have that kind of a, so to say, system where to bring in the child at par with the other students. So it becomes a very difficult thing to convince the parents My question to the expert, have you really faced any issue like this, and if at all, how did you overcome that? Because this is very common.
And I think
50% of the kids who are,
yeah.
yes,
So
sir.
I think you're right, Prashant. And Indu Bala Arora also has this question: how to help those special children whose parents are not ready to accept the disability of their ward. Yes, Usha ma'am, go ahead.
See, what we should do is, I know it takes time. These days, of course, the parents are quite clever. They come with the assessment. They come with the child's, testing is done. But if the child is there with us, we should give. See what happens from the very beginning. I have seen in certain schools, बच्चा nursery में आता है, अरे this child is special. How do you know? How do you know? Everybody will behave the way you're. So it is. We should first give them time. To my knowledge, I personally feel I should take little time to make the child understand, to adjust the child in the school, and then, if need be, then we should say your child. We will do the testing. Don't send the parent out. Get the testing done in the school itself, and the testing is done within the school campus, so the parents also don't feel. उनको पता है कि the special educator has looked into, and the child really, and on the contrary, they should feel happy because we are going out of way. They will have a separate assessment. We will have separate programs for them. It's not easy. We will be preparing every referral forms will be prepared. Every child, each day what the child has done. It takes a lot of time. On the contrary, they love to come to school. They'll say, please take my child because I know my child will do well. So it all depends how we create the conducive environment in the school and make the parents feel that your child, immediately if you tell the parent, they will not accept it. Let the child remain in the school for some time and then add up the observations and then call the parent and explain them. See, this is my observation, but what is your observation at home? Do you think that we should help the child? If you tell them like that, they understand. I remember in one case, one of the parents in one of the schools, because I'm a consultant in so many schools, in one of the schools, the moment the child came to school, the teacher said, oh, your child is a special child. The parent took out the child because the parent was a psychologist. They said the teacher doesn't know. She doesn't know how to look after. My child is behaving like this because the child is in a new environment. Not that my child has any learning disability. It's just that the child is taking time to adjust. Some children take time. The boys take little more time. Girls get adjusted very well. It happens. That's a part of, growing. How does it matter? But to immediately label the child and say that your child has this thing, that I don't agree, and we should not accept it also.
Ma'am, I have actually one more follow-up question. So I remember when I came back from States in '97, at that time dyslexia was a very big word. So suddenly I heard that in every school people have started talking about dyslexia. Although it's a scientific process to diagnose dyslexia, but what I found when I went to some of the schools is every slow learner was being classified as a dyslexic kid. So do we now in India have real good diagnostics to figure out whether a child is dyslexia, and are these accessible? These tools, are they accessible to most principals and teachers to use? Because we have about 350,000 private schools in the country. So can they access these tools easily? How do they do this?
Do I answer or Mrs. Singh?
Any one of you who wants to take it up, and I'm fine with it.
See, we have lots and lots of assessments. These apparatuses are available. There are institutions also I would not like to mention. In Delhi itself, we have got 5. And then there's RCI, Rehabilitation Council of India. They are the one who give the certification to the special educators and all. So even they have certain places where they get the testing done. So the testing it is available now. Because when you are talking about your being abroad, I have done my special inclusive program from Harvard School of Education, where I shared my program with them. And they were so happy that India has all this. I said, yeah, we have this. We are doing it. If you think that they took me to their schools, I said, you took me to this school, you come to India and I'll show you how many schools we have. So we are also doing it, and we do have. But I do not know what is there outside the Delhi and NCR, because those places I have not visited. I went to few schools outside Delhi, Amritsar and all that. I really tried to help them out, but they do not have the equipment and they do not have that apparatus to test. But then I think gradually things are getting developed, because I'm talking about 10 years ago that I had visited two schools in Amritsar and in Chandigarh. But I think they also must be having, but all these things are available. And I'm sure Mrs. Singh will, because she's a special educator, she will approve this, that we have all these apparatuses available, and we know if how the child is a dyslexic, or the child is dyscalculia or dysgraphia, or all those whichever we have, we come to know about it. That's not a problem.
Kanwal, is that also, yeah, go ahead, please.
So one thing is that I would say that the movie Tare Zameen Par, yes, it did a lot of good, because people came to know about learning disabilities and all, but it also did a lot of harm, because dyslexia and LD and ADHD and hyperactive became very commonly used terms. So any child who was not paying attention, or even if the child did not have the disability, like labeling just started, rampant labeling. So that was one point. The second thing is that a lot of things like reversals, dyslexia, may you have reversals. So instead of B, the child will write D, and all those things anyway happen till the age of 7. So a lot of children make errors which are like learning disability errors, but they're not learning disabled. So we have to be very careful not to label them before the age of 7. But my own niece, who studies in a very good school, was labeled as LD when she was 4 years old. So which is absolutely wrong, because that's when the brain is developing and you're learning how to figure out things. It's only if these symptoms or characteristics, whatever you want to call them, only if they continue after the age of 7, that you can kind of do a screening. And then you see whether you need to go to a psychologist for further testing or not. So yes, we jump into things and we make life very difficult for children and parents at times.
At times there are children, who are a little mischievous. They won't like to study. They would say, "Ma'am, मुझे भी तारे नजर आते हैं. Ma'am, मुझे भी उल्टा नजर आता है." I said, "ठीक है, कोई बात नहीं, उल्टा नजर आने भी सीधा हो जाएगा."
हाँ, हम तुम्हें सीधा कर देंगे हम तुम्हें.
नहीं, हम नहीं. Because we took all the children for a movie. पूरी स्कूल को लेके गए थे. मुझे हाथ खड़े, मैम मुझे भी नजर आते, मैम मैं भी. मैं तो कोई बात नहीं, सब ठीक हो जाओगे, कोई बात नहीं, आप करो कोई. And I like Mrs. Singh's, that up to 7 years of age, we should not even label the child for anything.
That's a very important. I think that's a very
second standard. Till the time child comes to class 2, we should not really even think of assessing for learning disability. For other things, in any case, you can make out because they have the mental illness or they have the other, physical disabilities. But when it comes to learning disability, up to 7 years of age, that is second standard, we should not label them at all.
I think that's a very wonderful message. We have R. Tandon. I don't know her or his first name, but R. Tandon.
Yes, greetings to all. Good evening. This is Rupika Tandon.
Okay.
Sir, my question is actually in context to what you said, and plus I would like to add. You said dyslexia. You mentioned that dyslexia was the in word after Tare Zameen Par came. You will be surprised that in 10th, in the CBSE board, when you have 10th and 12th, you have these SLD certificates are given and all. So any child who's a slow writer or anything of that sort, there are some 17 disabilities listed. So ADHD is not there, whereas we feel a lot of trouble is caused because I should not be using the word trouble, but yes, we have to pay more attention to these ADHD children who are not willing to sit at one place, but ADHD is not there in one of those, the certificates and all. So broadly, dyslexia is given to them. If you go to any of these psychologists who have to give that certification, they write dyslexia, and you are able to, you know, take the benefits from CBSE. So there has to be more transparency. What I mean to ask, I mean, you do need a certification when in all these ninth CBSE boards and all. But if it is misguiding, if it is misleading, then what should the principal do in this case?
Okay, so what
Ma'am,
should the principal do?
Misleading
Usha
in
ji,
what
go
way?
ahead.
Ma'am, if they say a child is a slow writer,
Yeah.
and they'll say it is dyslexia, because there are 17 disabilities mentioned, and the child will have the certification of dyslexia, and therefore he'll be you know, entitled for all those what you say, the relaxations and or any other things.
The benefits
So
can.
I know my child doesn't have those mirror images problem, or doesn't see the letters dancing, okay, and still he is termed as dyslexia. So it gives a very wrong picture to the teacher who is taking care of it, and you know, the principal and all, and parents say humne to bata diya tha.
We are trying to add up ADHD also.
Yeah, ADHD is not there as of now.
We'll add this up also. We are working out that also, that ADHD, because it's also though it's not a this thing, but because we cannot call them dyslexic. वो बच्चे वो dyslexic थोड़ी, वो तो उनको attention seeking behavior उनका है, तो उसको हम उसमें add नहीं कर सकते हैं. We cannot add.
Okay, so
no,
we
but how
have.
to help? I'm sorry, but how to help such children where the disability is not perfectly known to us? I mean, in this case, my question is, the transparency has to be there, where CBSE, and as you rightly said, that there will be things. I mean, things will change. I think more transparency is required for any small school to function. Not every school will be able to have their own team of special educators and all that.
See, what we have done is that we ask for 6th, 7th, 8th सारा result मांगते. Otherwise, why 9th standard only you want that facility? उसको avoid करने, to avoid that, now we say that please give us from 6th, 7th, 8th. We come to know whether the child had any problem at that time. Now at 9th standard, you're asking for a writer, you're asking for extra time, you're asking for prompter. All that cannot be given at that level. So I only remember that we are trying our best to make it as transparent and as accessible to everybody. You know, access होना चाहिए, but then the rest things do take time.
Yeah, there are. I think there are some systemic issues that would be addressed over a period of time, and we need to live with the system. Let me call Mr. Satvir Jain. Sir, please go ahead with your question and comments. Mr. Jain is part of ICSL Board of Advisors also.
Dr. Nishtal, Usha ji, and Dr. Singh.
Jain sir, namaskar.
5 to 6 p.m. is a vitamin and protein for all of us. Thank you so much. But I am little sad today, and much sad today, because you see the kind of problem that we face in America. You see, for so long, the kind of enlightenment, it cannot be. It has not come there. The white and black, their inclusiveness, and there are whatever is going in spite of education, so much of material well-being and all that. India being a very large country, what I find is that in city like Delhi, there are lack of testing centers, there are lack of experts, and there are lack of what we call the schools and who are going to take them. And if they are there, they are very expensive. Most of the government hospitals even do not have these testing facilities, or if you go the time that are taken, you go to a school, the first thing would be that they would discourage you. मैं गया किसी स्कूल में, मैंने कहा भाई ये बच्चा है, इसको ले लो, उनके स्कूल के यूं बोले जी मेरा पेन छुड़ाओ, क्यों आप मेरे पीछे डालते हो? अच्छा, जिन घरों में अच्छा जो मैनेजमेंट हैं, most of the managements are not as sensitive as we try to paint them. This is a reality. Teachers, experts, principals, because there is no formal training available to them, except that when the law comes that you have to teach so many children, and they come, and that is why if a survey is done in all these schools, you will find very, very few children as compared to the number of disabled children that exist, that are there in the city. And in a family, if there is some disabled, then that person becomes more active than like the example of Tamanna and so many other organizations are there. Where so this is the law and how they are going to help, because this sensitization amongst the parents, the management, the principal, the staff, because that means a lot of additional responsibility on your shoulders. Now, if your soul is so strong, your mind is so strong, and you are so committed that you take on the challenge and you accept them, then there are the financial challenges. Like you see, when a child comes, as Usha ji has said, you have to have a ayah, you have to have this and that and special children. And if there are 2 children and 2, 3 children or 5 children, then the cost also adds to that. So a very, very innovative kind of thinking has to be developed. And more of facilities have to be created, the testing facilities, the guiding facilities, the counseling facilities, then sensitizing the peer group, the teachers, and the principals. Head of school, of course, is most important, but with head of school, the manager, the chairman, the managing committee, they all have to be sensitized. It is no secret that what I'm trying to imply.
So I think you're absolutely right. And one of the things, sir, is that the policy, if it is coming out, I think and events like these is part of the sensitizing process. But I think it's a journey that we are starting, and this is the first step of the journey. Expecting that the entire India education system will become inclusive in the next 5 years. But किसी ना किसी को शुरुआत करनी पड़ेगी. शुरू में 10 लोग होंगे, एक दिन वो 100 हो जाएंगे, 1000 हो जाएंगे, 10,000 हो जाएंगे. I think that's the spirit. Usha ji, you want to add something to this?
Yeah, I would like to say whatever Mr. Jain said. I fully agree with him. कि इतने ज़्यादा नहीं है. We do not have those facilities the way we should have. But please understand that government has got tax exemptions are there. You can get tax exemption. You can get many more benefits. The benefits which were there in US and all, now they are there in India also. Lekin people are not aware of it, that they can get the concession from their own companies also, from the tax also. If you give a certification that your child is differently abled and you are spending more money on that. So country is understanding, people are understanding, but it takes time. As you said, 1 se 2, 2 se 2, then only the number will go up. But then it's a very big issue. It's not a small thing. It's a battle which we need to win. But I fully agree with Mr. Jain that much is not there, and the cost is also there. If you go to private places, government schools you can't go only. So if you go to private schools, they do have their own issues and they charge also. And you go for testing also, you have to pay 4,500, you have to pay 5,000. Sometimes you have to be in a queue also. You tell them that, okay, your turn will, I know the organization is doing one of the best works here in Hoskas. And they say that you will get only chance after 1 month. We don't have the testing that much of facility, but they do very well.
So I'm down to the last 3 minutes. I'll take up one more question. Dr. Anil Kumar, if you're there with us.
Yeah, good evening, sir. This is nice initiative by you, Atul Nishalji. And thank you, Usha ma'am and Kamal ma'am. You gave a lot of information related to inclusive education. My question is that I think because I am associated with the National Association of Special Educators, I am a secretary of that one. So, so many special educators are having concern that they are working as a activistic. So activism, actually, they are not giving intervention. Actually, they are playing role of activism. So how that we can make a uniformity in private schools, that every school will understand actually what is the role of special educator, what is the role of like school teachers, subject teachers. This is very important nowadays. Definitely inclusive education बहुत progress किया है पिछले 10 सालों में, and it is progressing now also. So my question is, ma'am, how that uniformity will come? Because CBSE is making a rules and regulation, but school is following or not following. This is a different part. So what you will suggest for that one?
Kamal, you want
I can share with educators.
I can just think
yes,
that
sir.
Special educators, जैसे आपने बोला, थोड़ा struggle कर रहे हैं कि जो training, the training they got, they're not using that. They're doing something else.
Mm.
The
Yes,
point is that they were trained for special education, which is based on the medical approach, but they're expected to practice inclusive education, which is based on the human rights approach. So उनका जो training है और जो उनका काम है वो बदल रहा है, वो evolve हो रहा है. और fact अगर वो वही कर रहे हैं जो उन्होंने special school में किया था और सीखा था, अगर वही वो अब मेन स्ट्रीम स्कूल रेगुलर स्कूल में कर रहे हैं तो वहां पे एक्चुअली गड़बड़ है, क्योंकि वो काम नहीं करेगा, वो इंक्लूजन नहीं होगा. वो बस ये होगा कि स्पेशल स्कूल की जगह दे आर वर्किंग इन अ मेन स्ट्रीम स्कूल विद वन चाइल्ड. सो ओनली द सेटअप हैज चेंज्ड, व्हाट दे हैव डन that hasn't changed. So it's very important that unka actually role evolve ho, and it's starting with activism.
Ma'am, one more thing that I want to share. Abhi Director of Education Delhi government ne recently within 1 year they framed some role and responsibility of a special educator in government schools. और बड़ा इफेक्टिवली वो काम किया है एंड उसका बहुत फ्रूटफुल रिजल्ट भी आया है because every educator is able to.
You will have to ask your question because I'll have to shut this in about 2 minutes. So is there a question that you have, Anil?
Sir, just I want to ask the tips that what I can share with others, that what are the tips that uniformity will be there in private schools.
Okay, good. So let me hold on to that question. Anji, Usha ma'am, you want to say something?
Yeah, it's important that, again, coming to the same thing, to sensitize the school principal management that, the role of a special educator and a counselor is more than a regular teacher, because that teacher is teaching only one subject. Here I'm dealing with such children whom I have to deal with them not only academically, but emotionally, socially, and otherwise. So that sensitization is very important. And I'm sure that more of these kind of, programs, and if we have it for the principals, for the managements, they will understand that the special educator's role is not only of looking after one particular area, but they have to look after the child. Well, even I know certain cases, the counselors are used as teachers. I said, how can you give a class to a counselor? She is a counselor and she has to be available to the school, to the teachers and the students. And I had to literally fight with them to say that this teacher will not be given any periods, because that teacher is only a counselor. She has to sit in a room and wait anytime, just give a call and see that the counselor is available.
So I think the roles of special educators, counselors will also evolve over a period of time. They have evolved in the last 10 years. They will evolve more. Now, before we shut down this show, I need to have one reminder. After every convo, we put a quiz, a 5-question quiz for you to answer on that topic. These are simple 5 questions, and the purpose is to make sure that you have been listening to us and you have not been sleeping and only recording this session. And the beauty is that if you get 5 out of 5, you get a free surprise gift shipped to your house by ICSL, right? So not only do you get to check your knowledge, but you also get to win the prize. But there's only one catch. Only the first person who gets 5 out of 5 gets that surprise gift. So be really quick. The link is already in the chat box. I want to thank Usha ji. I want to thank Kanwal on behalf of the entire education community, on behalf of ICSL, for making this show really, really special. And I'm very sure, ma'am, we will go deeper into aspects of inclusive education. And we would love to have you back on the program one of those Fridays when we again want to make a special program. So thank you very much. Thank you all the people who joined us. Make sure you take the quiz, get 5 out of 5, and get the gift. It's a surprise, so I can't tell you what size television it is, okay?
You gave a stress to everybody.
No, so ma'am, what television hai nahi, okay? So that's why I'm saying I don't want to tell you what size television it is. But it's going to be a surprise gift. Just keep waiting for it. Thank you so much once again. Thank you so much.